Hello there, they call me Mystery. I see a lot of people wearing these t-shirts, like they have some type of deep connection with the man affectionately known as Shay. But when I have asked them who he was and what he stood for, the response was underwhelming. So I thought I would investigate the man behind the pop icon, especially because he has a revolutionary story.
My name is Mystery. For reasons unknown, I have been thrown back into the past almost 100 years, and this is my story.
Ernesto Guevara de la Serna was born officially on the 14th of June 1928. I say officially because it is likely that his real birth date may have been a month earlier, as his parents didn't want their families figuring out that he was conceived out of wedlock. Naughty naughty. His mother, named Celia de la Serna, was an Argentine with Spanish noble lineage. His father, Ernesto Guevara Lynch, was from upper middle class Argentinian society with distant ties to both Spanish and Irish nobility. Notably though, Shay was of upper class European heritage and thus came from privileged Argentinian society. He was not a working class man. When he was very young, Ernesto's family was forced to move to higher altitudes in Argentina to help relieve the symptoms of his asthma. Due to his condition, he spent much of his time inside and engaged in a lot of reading, with a particular passion for poetry. It was his love of reading that earned him high esteem as an intellectual, not just a guerrilla fighter, which seems to be what he's only known for. Ernesto originally started studying engineering at university, but after the death of his grandmother, he decided to study medicine. Becoming a doctor would be instrumental in him becoming a revolutionary and a guerrilla fighter. During third year studying medicine, he went on a solo trip around Argentina, where he first came in touch with the intense reality of stark inequality between the urban and the rural and indigenous populations that characterized his country. In 1952, he set out again, with a mate this time named Alberto, to travel around South America. Again, on this trip, he witnessed more of the poverty and the social divide ingrained in Latin America, which impassioned his revolutionary nature. To quote Ernesto from this trip, "How long this order of things, based on an absurd sense of caste, will continue is not within my means to answer. But it is time that those who govern dedicate less time to propagandizing the compassion of their regimes and more money, much more money, sponsoring works of social utility." It was this trip that galvanized his disdain for imperialism, specifically the US, experiencing numerous encounters with cultures across South America that had been interfered with and exploited by the US in the name of US corporations. His solution for his South American compatriots was to get the uncomfortable North American off its back, despite how daring that seemed. It was in Guatemala, though, where Ernesto's revolutionary zeal was forged. During a CIA-supported takeover of the Arbenz government, he chose to fight against the US-backed insurgents. When the government fell, he, like other Arbenz supporters, were hunted down, and so he sought refuge in the Argentinian embassy. It was the actions and the failures of the Arbenz government to stop US-backed intervention and takeover that gave him the inspiration for his own ideas on revolution. And it was also the building blocks of his fearless and ruthless reputation. His experience in Guatemala also granted him the name El Che Argentino. Che, which translates to something like "Hey you" in English. Hey you, Guevara. From Guatemala, he got to Mexico, and in 1955 declared himself a communist. After a life of purposefully refraining from politics, it was also in Mexico where he met Fidel Castro, and together with others, they planned and prepared for their rebel uprising in Cuba. Fidel and Che developed a great rapport, and although Che was Argentinian, he was personally invited by Fidel to take part in the Cuban Rebellion. He was to join as the guerrilla doctor. He undertook guerrilla training in Mexico, where he began to develop his reputation as a strict soldier and commander. Surprisingly, their intention to land in Cuba was no secret, and many people in Cuba knew they were coming. Their arrival was anticipated by the Batista regime. From the outset, though, their mission in Cuba was disastrous. They left people behind in Mexico. They failed to deploy properly. They were ambushed. They lost the majority of their forces and were scattered behind enemy lines without communication. But from here, they would gain experience and strength enough to topple the Batista regime and change the history of Cuba forever. It is important to note, they were not perfectly trained revolutionaries who executed strategies and tactics perfectly. A lot of their progress was made by trial and error, support from locals, and due to the arrogance of their opposition. In short, the Cuban Revolution was birthed from very humble and amateur beginnings. After seizing power in Cuba, the revolution was fragile and required special steps in order to protect it from US intervention and counter-revolution. As such, Che was kept from the limelight by Fidel in order to distance his regime from appearing influenced by communism. At the time, Che was charged with a crucial mission and led the Cuban Purge. Che saw this as an imperative revolutionary process to get rid of the old powers in Cuba, those who had committed crimes against the people of Cuba. Ridding Cuba of old power ensured the new revolutionaries had no established competition or roots for US-backed counter-revolution. It was Che's communist reputation, however, that was subsequently instrumental in Cuba's international relations and forming agreements with the worldwide socialist movement and communist countries. Che's influence helped establish crucial support from the Soviet Union to assist the Cuban revolutionary economy in its infancy and to gain defensive capabilities and military prowess in the Americas. This led to the missile crisis, where Cubans housed Russian nuclear missiles to deter US aggression towards Cuba and their friends. Fidel was never openly communist, and after the revolution, it was Che's influence on his friend that helped sway Fidel's political persuasions. Che spent almost a decade in the service of Cuba, helping establish the revolution and revolutionary society based on a socialist model. He took many different positions and offices at the request of Fidel, from economic, financial management, infrastructure implementation, onto agricultural reform. Che ended up being one of the architects of revolutionary Cuban society. But Che's heart was elsewhere, and he felt a great yearning to liberate the world from the clutches of imperialism and capitalism. Che truly believed that the combined forces of communist-style revolutions taking hold on the African, Asian and South American continents would be able to rival and then overthrow Western capitalism. And so Che joined revolutionary struggles in the Congo against imperialists in Africa. However, this was a tragic failure, and his aspirations and faith in global revolution were dashed by this experience. Che returned to Cuba after his failed Congo mission to plan his last guerrilla-style revolutionary mission to ignite revolutions in Latin America. Che believed that, quote, Latin America lacked the consciousness of the possibility of victory through violent struggle against the imperialist powers and their internal allies, and the peasant class of Latin America will provide the great liberating army of the future, as already done in Cuba. And so, he dedicated himself to unleashing that consciousness, starting with Bolivia. However, the Bolivian government and the CIA were ready for Che, and his revolutionary party would not be underestimated like in Cuba. Due to unlucky circumstances, disunity and complacency, the Cuban-led Bolivian insurrection was quickly routed, divided and hunted throughout the Bolivian countryside. When Che was finally captured, the Bolivian regime took great pride in executing him and ending the story of the famous Che Guevara. To his executioner, Che's final words were, "Shoot, coward, for you are only going to kill a man." A revolutionary till the end. What are some of the lessons of Ernesto's revolutionary life, though? Join me for the next video to explore them. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it and subscribe for more. Please, there is much more to learn about the revolution. Remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery.